one of the things that you're going to learn from this webinar is that SEO is not, there's no silver bullet in SEO. And I see this all the time where companies will email a certain client of ours, or just companies saying, oh, if you do this one thing, you're going to earn Google's trust. There's really not one silver bullet. And if it was that easy, everyone would be ranking number one and Google wouldn't be a good search engine because you'd have a bunch of bad content ranking number one. To earn Google's trust, you really have to put in the work and provide a lot of really good value to that Google can see and also for the users. And this really covers content, which we're gonna go over in a little bit, technical elements of the website, digital PR. It's one thing to create a good website and have good content, but you need to also push this out and let people know that you guys exist. And then analytics is super important, measurement, and then also user engagement. We're gonna cover this one last, and anyone who's watching, definitely recommend to stick around. This is a topic of SEO that I believe that is really overlooked. Google has always said, focus on the users. If the user likes the content, you're gonna rank higher. A lot of SEO practices out there, they just focus maybe on one or two of these pillars that we're gonna discuss, but they don't really focus on looking at user engagement. I'm going to get to that at the end. Definitely stay tuned for this. Also, one thing that you're gonna, if you're owning an SEO shop or you're working for one or you're thinking about it, prioritize SEO for your e-commerce shop, just because we see a lot of data. SEO will be one of your most profitable channels. It may not be the number one profitable channel, but over time, if you invest in it, you're gonna see some really solid gains and measurable return on your website. So we're gonna start off with content. Now, before any e-commerce stores thinking like, oh, okay, content's really important, I'm just gonna write a bunch of blogs. Don't go there yet. You have to do due diligence, and it all starts out with keyword research. So Jill, is that pretty accurate? Before writing any content, start off with some keyword research?
Yeah, it's definitely a good place to start, and you can really break that up into two different categories for keywords, so the head keywords and tail keywords. Head would be the primary keywords, so those are normally on product pages. They tend to be short tail keywords with high purchase intent, so they're specific keywords that users are looking for when they're looking to buy something. So for example, like white sneakers, if you have a product for white sneakers, that would be on your product page, that would be a head keyword. They tend to be broader terms too. So because they're broader terms, they will have higher usually have higher search volume and tend to be the most competitive ones. And then the next one would be tail keywords. And tail keywords, they often can have lower purchase intent for research queries. So they're great for putting on FAQs and blog pages. Because they're long tail keywords, although they're still competitive, they don't tend to be as competitive as your head keywords.
Yep. Yeah, so as you do the research, start off, we use a bunch of different tools, and of course, if anyone needs support with their SEO strategy, we can help out. We use a lot of different tools. We like SEMrush, and you can use that platform just to understand what people are searching, how difficult it is to rank for these keywords, and probably a really good first step is to find out all relevant keywords and put them into two different buckets. You have your head keywords, which might be more product specific, as Jill just mentioned. Let's say you're just selling shoes, Nike sneakers, Nike shoes, men's sneakers, whatever it is. And then also break it out in the tail keywords, which might be a little bit easier to rank for, which can be lower purchase intent if it's more research-based type of keywords, best shoes for insert sport. Or you still could have some high-level intent keywords if it's a very long search query, such as men's Nike sneakers, size 9.5, wide foot, or something like that. But start off with the keywords, because that's ultimately, start off with the keyword research, because that's ultimately what's going to influence your content. You don't want to just write content for the sake of writing. You're just going to spin your wheels, and you're going to think you're doing a lot of good stuff, but you're really not. Start off with the keyword research, and when you do that keyword research, and honestly this could be a whole separate webinar, is you're gonna see some keywords that you actually have a decent probability of ranking for. So start off with your keyword research. Anyone who's watching, definitely feel free to jump in with any questions here. Next, is, all right, so let's say we do our keyword research, we understand the type of head keywords we want to rank for, and then also the tail keywords that we want to rank for. Now, Jill, where should an e-commerce store start off with creating some of this content?
Usually it'll be good to start with your product pages, just because mostly for your website, all the other pages are generally going to be additional information or additional value to users that are going to direct them back to the product pages. The main goal of e-commerce businesses is going to be to want to sell your products, so the product page is a great place to start trying to rank higher in Google search results. So you can really break up the product pages into a few different sections. So the title would be the target keyword. Usually that's the head keyword in your product page title, and then go down to a unique description. So having text specs on the page, additional information such as like dimensions or materials that the product uses. You can also highlight features in this section. So if your product stands out from other products on the market, you can have that in your description. And then reviews and testimonials. It's always good to have even more unique content where if a user is going to a product page, they can see what people think about your product right on the page, and having an FAQ just to answer a few questions specific to the product too.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a couple of pitfalls that we see a lot of e-commerce shops fall into. So one is duplicate content. So let's say you're a reseller, you don't have your own product, you resell it. And what they'll simply do is copy and paste the product description that the manufacturer provides. Now, it's good to have that type of description, but if that's your only content, Jill, that's duplicate content, right? And that's not a good thing?
Yeah, duplicate content usually isn't a good thing. If you have similar products, and we can go into this later, but you can either use canonical URLs to separate those similar product pages, or you can actually just make sure that Google's only indexing one version of that page.
Yep. Yeah, so don't just throw an e-commerce product page with just the manufacturer description, because why should Google put you above all the rest? It's the same content that's out there. There's no real value in that, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. So definitely expand on the product, and if you follow this format that's listed right here, you should do pretty well, and just focus on two things. One, is it unique? And then two, is it providing real value? Testimonials, reviews, absolutely, as well as FAQ. And you can even use some of the keyword research tools to understand what are the top common questions that people ask about this. So start off with product page. This is where you're gonna make your money, is getting people to this page. So make sure that you have a lot of really helpful content on this page. But content just doesn't stop there. There's a ton of additional content that every e-commerce site should consider. So Jill, let's sit on that a little bit. Outside of the product page, what are some other elements that we should consider?
There's definitely a lot of opportunities to add more content. So one of the first ones would be blogs. Blogs can establish your brand as an authority in your niche. You can really go in depth into other topics, even beyond your product, pertaining to your overall industry, other things that users might be looking for within your industry that will then bring them to your product, and will then bring them to your product as a solution to what questions they might have or something that they're looking for. You can also do product guides. So if someone is about to purchase a product, or if they're thinking of purchasing a product, these would be resource materials that would pertain to that. So any sort of how-tos of how to use the product maybe, or how to maintain the product, those could be good things to have in a product guide section. About Us is a great way to introduce users to your brand. So that could be, if people are first getting to your site, they can see what your company is all about and why you might have started the company, or your company's missions and values. And then a general FAQ. So aside from questions that people have about products, these would be broader questions that people might have about your company or about your industry that you're in. Yeah,
definitely. And there's a couple things I want to call out. So yes, definitely start off with the product page content, because that's your moneymaker. But then these other areas of content, this is just other means to get people into your site. So we start off this presentation with content, because without content, you're not going to rank at all. So start there. And then from content, there's other elements of SEO for e-commerce that we absolutely recommend. And this is a real fun one. Structured data markup, otherwise known as schema. By the screenshots here, it looks probably really complex. It's really not that complex, and it adds a ton of value. So Jill, why don't you just share with us a little bit about what schema is and how this can help e-commerce stores?
Yeah, so schema, like you mentioned, is structured data markup. It's in a machine readable format, so it helps Google's crawlbots understand the content of your page, and that helps them in turn just determine where to put you within search results. It just helps you understand the main information that you want to come across. So for e-commerce, there's a few different things you can do in terms of schema. There's actually a lot of options beyond this, but some of the main ones for e-commerce are local business schema, which is business information. So things like your opening hours or your location, your address. The next one would be product schema. So product schema is, it improves your brand's participation in shopping related experiences within search results. So you can see that within the example right there from Aliberte in the presentation. So if you look, it has additional information at the bottom, such as the price, whether it's in stock or not. These are all things that are helpful that you can put inside your schema so that Google understands what users might want to look at before they're even clicking into your site. It's something that on the page users won't be able to see. It's in the back end of the site, so it doesn't take away from the way you're structuring your product page and the way you want your content to look on the page.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, one of the reasons why you should do this, if you're looking and if you're Googling, in this case, some pair of leather boots, and you see just a standard Google listing with just a title, a meta description, that's about it. But then you see this one from Aliberte, where it gives a ton of great information up front. 4.9 rating out of 5, 32 reviews, the price, delivery, free 45-day returns. Yes, it is in stock. It just sells it that much better. That's what we'd recommend everyone to do. We can definitely help implement the schema. Also, anyone who is interested in DIYing it, excuse me one second, we have some traffic going through. But if anyone also is interested in DIYing it, which, you know, you can definitely try. ChatGPT could be super helpful for this. We don't use ChatGPT a lot or pretty much at all for content, but for any type of technical coding, this could be an area that you play around with it. But if anyone gets stuck, because it is a little complex, we can certainly help out there. And as people who are on the chat, feel free to jump in with any questions. I know some of these topics are a little dense, so feel free to jump in there. So continuing on the path of technical SEO, let's talk about canonicals. So canonicals have been around for a while, although a lot of e-commerce marketers don't necessarily know what canonicals are. They might have heard it in the past, but really don't have a full understanding. So Jill, why don't you just kind of share what is a canonical and how is that used, and what's the benefit of it?
Sure. So this is also going back to duplicate content that we were mentioning earlier. So canonical URLs can help search engines just understand which version of a web page to index. So a lot of things that happen with e-commerce businesses is that there's certain products that might fit into multiple categories of products on their site, or maybe it's a product that comes in different sizes or different colors. You can structure your URLs basically in an organizational structure so that you can see which ones should be indexed and how Google understands to avoid duplicate content issues.
Yeah, it's super helpful for any type of e-commerce store that has a lot of different variants of a product. So let's say you're selling t-shirts, or let's stick with shoes, for example, Nike Kicks, but you're gonna have maybe 10 different sizes of shoes, and each of those might be its own page, but it's almost kind of duplicate content because you have these 10 URLs, each one with a different size attribute. That's not really the best experience. So what you want to do is just on all of the sizes, really say, okay, this is a page, you can crawl it, but the canonical or the parent is the main product page itself. And what that does is sends a signal to Google that this is not duplicated content. These are different variants, and yes, focus on this main page. And then also it just passes more SEO equity to that main page. So it's not just distributed into 10 different pages. It's all focused on that one main product page. So thanks so much for sharing that. Canonicals, again, it's been around for a while, but most marketers have heard it, but don't necessarily know how to use it. And it can be very impactful for any e-commerce shop. A couple other technical SEO best practices. There's a lot out there. I think we're covering the most important ones just to prioritize impact. But Jill, why don't you just kind of share maybe 2 other elements that you think would be important to share with everyone?
So the metadata, making sure that each page has metadata. So in organic search results, before you even click into a page from Google, you'll see normally a title and then a small description underneath. These are going to be the first things that users see from an organic search result before they even click into your site. So that's the metadata, and that's why you'd want to optimize that, because it's the first impression that people are going to have of your business before they even click into your site. The next one would be page speed. So just making sure that your page loads properly for both mobile and desktop leads to a higher improved user experience, which can also lead to higher conversion rates, and just an overall positive experience. So making sure that images are loading properly and that they can see everything on the page.
Yeah, speed is so important, often overlooked. So just check out your site. There's some really great tools out there. Google Page Speed Insights. It'll tell you how well you're doing from a speed perspective. Also, try looking at your site from various devices. It's easy just to look at your website from a desktop or laptop computer that's connected to high-speed internet. Great, your site might be loading fast in that atmosphere, but what about a mobile device, or maybe a mobile device that's not connected to Wi-Fi? How is it loading? Because oftentimes, a lot of product research isn't done on a high-powered computer connected to some high-powered internet. It might be just someone commuting to and from work on a train, and with questionable cell reception, you want to make sure that your site isn't too heavy, that it can still load pretty well for folks coming from all different circumstances. Also, I want to share a meta description. That is super important because it can help out your click-through rate. But what's interesting here is if anyone's doing some Google ads, there's a lot of really good Google ad data that you can use for your description. So take the top performing Google ads and then simply use it for your SEO. It's a lot of good data that you probably already have if you're investing in Google ads. So that pretty much wraps up all the main technical components that we want to cover for today. So now, there's one more. I do want to talk about Google Merchant Center. Now, Google Merchant Center isn't totally technical, but it's very important. So Google Merchant Center houses all of your products for Google to understand. And if you're using Shopify, it probably spits out, or WooCommerce probably spits out a product feed. And what you should do is every e-commerce business should create a Google Merchant account where you can upload that feed so Google has a full read of all of your products that you have available. But you don't want to just stop right there, because you really should optimize that feed so to really give Google a true understanding of what each product is. And now the benefit of that is if you are searching on Google, shopping.google.com on their e-commerce site, or just on straight out search, you're going to see Google really focuses a lot on these products. And about a year or two ago, you don't necessarily have to have an ad budget for these products to show. Google is showing free product listings out there, but in order to be visible there, you need to have a Google Merchant account, and also, just as important, you need to have an optimized product feed. Whatever Shopify or WooCommerce spits out, it's usually a half-baked product, and you really need to optimize that feed to give Google the correct categorization, descriptions, and titles. And anyone who's listening needs help with product feed optimization, we can absolutely help, and we strongly advocate it because we do see the impacts that that can have both from an SEO perspective as well as a Google Ads perspective. So that wraps up technical. Let's switch gears a little bit. So just to recap, we covered important elements for content. We covered technical elements to cover. Now we need to promote this a little bit. And really what we like to call this is digital PR. And by doing some digital PR, you're sending even more signals to Google and the other search engines that you're a viable brand and that folks are recognizing all the great content that you have out there. So Jill, why don't you just share a little bit about how we approach digital PR and how we would recommend it for anyone who's listening today?
There's a lot of avenues for digital PR. A lot of the ones we cover, so social media could be the first one. On Instagram and Pinterest specifically, you can add your shopping catalog to them. You can also just increase brand awareness there and product awareness. It's a great place for users to also engage with your brand before they even get to your site. So they can engage with you right through your posts on your company page and things like that. And then guest posting is another one. So these would be articles on other sites that then link back to yours. It's a great place for other sites, other credible sites, to be referencing your company or your products, and it shows users that you're not the only one talking about your company or your products. There's also other places out there that have pretty good amount of organic search traffic on their own site and a high domain authority. Those places will be great places to have mentions that mention your site. And then the last one is just so reviews. There's a few review sites that you can add your products to or your company to, so that users, not just on your product page, but on other sites, they can also see that, see what users are thinking of your product and how they feel about your product.
Awesome. Yeah, so a lot of great avenues to go there. And just to echo again, the importance of it is if there's two e-commerce shops and let's say they have the exact same content, they have the exact same technical setup, how is Google going to rank one over the other? And really, it's going to come down to, well, are other people and other credible sources interacting with that brand, whether through social media or links from other websites or review sites? And what's going to come down to is, all things being equal, the site that has much more brand equity and brand influence and brand engagement is going to rank significantly higher. Since social media has been out, Google's been tracking it. Early in the days, they said that they weren't really factoring that into their algorithms. I think times have changed a bit where they are taking some level of consideration on it. Obviously, there's only a couple of engineers at Google that know the true algorithm, but that's pretty much the industry consensus. So once you have a great site built out, technical setup, you do need to work on some digital PR, and that's just going to rise the tides of all things SEO that you're working on. So we covered that. Now, one area that is so important and critical is just to set up proper measurement. Now, most folks that might be listening is like, okay, well, I have my Google Analytics, I'm set up, I'm good, right? It really goes beyond that, and there's many different platforms that we would recommend, but here are the top 3 platforms that we strongly recommend, and each platform has its own purpose. So Jill, why don't you just share what value do each of these platforms provide, and why e-commerce shops should set up reporting through these?
So the first one on there, Google Search Console. Google Search Console is great specifically for SEO. There's a few things you can look at in there. You can see which pages Google is indexing, so which ones are showing up within organic search results. You can also see how your core web vitals are performing, so basically your site's overall health. You can also see how many users in search results are scrolling past links to your site. So if they're scrolling past a link to a certain page, you can see how many impressions there are, and then how many of those people are actually clicking into your site as well. So there's a lot of good data on there. The next one would be Google Analytics. This is going to show you a lot more data within your site. So as opposed to within Google search results, it's going to show you user sessions and session duration, It's going to have a lot more information on how users are interacting with specific pages on your site. And then the last one, SEMrush is actually a third-party tool, so it's not something that's from Google specifically, but it's a great way to see which best practices you should be using for SEO. You can look at things like keyword research, so you can see which keywords you should be targeting and how much volume they get, the difficulty of them. You can see a lot of data on different sites. You can see their authority score or how credible they are within their industry compared to others within their industry. You can see a lot of good information on how growth of keywords and then increases in organic traffic.
Yeah, so there's a lot here, and also two of the three platforms that Jill just walked us through, they're free. Google Analytics doesn't cost a thing. Google Search Console, another free tool, and then the only paid platform right here is just SEMrush. And of course, if anyone needs support with any setting up proper measurement or getting access to SEMrush data, we can certainly support that. And then last thing that we want to cover, and I teed this up a little bit in the intro, that a lot of SEOs generally forget is that you need to optimize towards user engagement. Google rewards this. So many times in so many blogs out there, people will be like, okay, just focus on content. No, just focus on backlinks. Oh, just focus on the technical. Truly, it's everything. And then the ultimate is focusing on user engagement, because if users are engaging with your website, Google's going to pick up on it. Google has all the data, and if people are clicking on your links on Google and going to a site, but then not only just visiting your site, but actually engaging with your site and staying on it for a while, Google's going to pick up on that. And that is really going to factor into the rankings. And Google has said, when people ask like, oh, should my content be 1,000 words or 2,000 or 500? Their response almost all the time is focus on the length and the type of content that's going to be most valuable to the user. And they're going to see that through just site engagement. There's a couple things I want to talk about of how you should be looking at this. Google Search Console, take a look at what your click-through rate is relative to other pages on the site. For the pages that have a strong click-through rate, take a note on what you did to that page that you had a high click-through rate. On Google Analytics, focus on a couple different metrics here, not to overwhelm, but a couple things that is important. So engagement rate, which Google has is just a pre-bucketed report. Time on site is a really good one. Are people clicking to your site and then leaving it for 15 seconds? Or are they spending 1 to 2 minutes on your site? And that's a really good sign. Are they signing up maybe for a newsletter or engaging in any other conversion events such as an add to cart, a checkout, or ultimately a purchase? So above all, optimize towards the user engagement, because those users, if they're engaging with your site, they're going to purchase from you. And then Google's going to see all these great signals. On the chat from our team at Rise, they did mention Microsoft Clarity, excellent tool, which gives you even another level of user engagement of heat maps and where people are going on your website and how far they're clicking down or scrolling down, which can be very helpful from a UX perspective. For example, if you have a page and the heat map is way up on top, but all your important information is way down here, you should probably think about restructuring that page so that way all the important messaging or actions that you're asking is front and center where the users can see. But again, as always, just focus on that user engagement. You're going to get more customers that way, and Google is definitely going to reward this. So Jill, thank you so much for joining us on this webinar. If anyone has any interest in chatting with us on your SEO, on your e-commerce store, reach out to us, risemkg.com. Anyone who is still watching this, definitely subscribe to us, because every other week we will be putting out more and more free content. So with that, Jill, I thank you again, and best of luck, everyone out there.